Hi everybody. So I made this video a couple of weeks ago. I wasn't very happy with how it turned out, so this is attempt number 2. You may notice my surroundings are different, and that is because I'm now no longer in Labyrinth Studios. Long story short, the business just didn't work out, and sometimes you have to know when to quit whilst you're ahead, which is a really tough decision to make. It's been hard the last 6 months or so. So the business ended at the end of October last year. I knew that coming out of that business, I wanted to continue on my own, which I knew meant downscaling and rethinking my sort of whole business strategy, if you like. So I knew that meant a lower rental cost, lower general overhead, which in turn meant needing a smaller studio space, because typically the larger the space, the more it's going to cost in rent. Little did I know that, I maybe was overly or naively optimistic about that proposition. Coming out of Labyrinth, I figured I'll be able to find somewhere else, and I might sort of have a couple of months in the interim. So I've gone back into live sound work in the live events industry, which of course is my main sort of background. So I've gone back to doing that to just pay the bills. And yeah, I was a little naive, overly optimistic, maybe, that I'd find somewhere easily. And it's actually proved really tough to find somewhere suitable. The problem you have is that in running a recording studio or any kind of business where you've got to make noise that might disturb other people, you need to find somewhere relatively well isolated, or you have to do a lot of soundproofing, which, doing that to an existing structure can be very tricky. Or you go the way of renting an industrial warehouse unit maybe that's empty, and you build the structures inside, rooms within a room and so on. But that's incredibly costly. That can cost, tens and tens of thousands of pounds. I don't have that money. Even if I did, investing that into a building that is not, or a space that's not your own, it can be worth it if you know that you're going to see that return on investment. But typically for recording studios, particularly with the industry the way it is right now, the music industry, it's very difficult to see a return on that kind of investment. So, a lot of people who do end up going that route, they're doing it without expecting to see that return on their investment, really just because, they're passionate and they want to run a recording studio. That's not to say that you can't make a solid living from what you're doing, but in terms of seeing that return on your initial investment, that is very difficult to achieve. For me, the other thing as well that you have to consider is that it's not just the noise you're making that might disturb other people. It's also noise other people are making that might disturb you. Typically, when you're recording, you're going to need a very quiet environment, especially when you're recording stuff like acoustic guitars, that, quieter sources where you're going to have the microphones, your gain set higher and a lot more sensitive of a signal and higher signal to noise ratio. Yeah, finding an existing place that is like that is small also, that's the difficult thing. A lot of small spaces are going to be in buildings that landlords have bought up and rent out as commercial spaces, that are typically going to be office spaces or creative use spaces or industrial spaces. All of which, either if it's office spaces, you're going to have people working office jobs who don't want to be disturbed by the sound of, a drummer bashing away at a drum kit. Industrial type uses or creative type uses where you've got other businesses that, maybe they're using power tools, they've got a woodworking workshop or whatever. That's going to be noise that you're going to have to contend with, and you're probably going to bother them with your noise and they're going to bother you, and nobody wins. So finding a space like that is tough. And, the last 6 months have been an incredible drain on my energy and my mental health. And to be honest, I've not been great. I've been pretty bad, to be honest. I've really felt just a crash and a deterioration in my overall well-being. because, all the uncertainty and the anxiety and just the what ifs, can I get this thing off the ground again? And you start questioning, why am I doing this? Is this worth it? Adding to that, of course, I have all my existing business assets coming out of the studio, ending the business with my business partner. We both took our own existing assets that we brought into the studio and then split up as best as we could the rest of the assets that the business had accumulated. I've got a whole ton of recording equipment and also loads of building materials that, I managed to salvage from Labyrinth. Lots of heavy duty fire doors, bags and bags of insulation, all the acoustic treatment panels we bought, or built rather, over 40, I think, broadband absorbers, a whole bunch of corner bass traps. Yeah, a lot of stuff. Coming out of Labyrinth, the landlord that we were renting off in the shared building we were in, I asked them if they had anywhere smaller available. They said that they did, but it was in the basement level of the building and that that whole area needed a lot of renovation before it would be ready to rent. But they said they had some units that they could rent out to me. They showed me around, they gave me rental prices, and there were 2 adjacent units that were perfect in that, one could be the control room and one could be the live room. They were good sizes, not too big, not too small, shape-wise, like a nice layout overall. Quite high ceilings, which, typically is good for acoustics. Being on the basement level, a nice concrete solid foundation, not too much in the way of other noise disturbances in the building. So it was ticking a lot of boxes. Of course, there was the aspect of that area needing renovation and the time that might take. So I asked them, well, look, if I am going to rent these units, can I store my business assets, all my stuff, somewhere in the building until the renovation is done, and then I can move into the basement units, which would make a lot of sense, rather than moving all my stuff to storage elsewhere or whatever, keep it in the building, and then it's a nice easy move, less costly, I guess, because I've not got the cost of moving stuff elsewhere to only then move it back. Yeah, it was looking promising. I started renting storage from them after about 5 months. They then turned around and said that they weren't going to go ahead with the renovation and that they couldn't rent those units out to me, which of course, I was not happy about at all. Understandably, I think, because I've been paying for that storage on the premise of renting these units in the basement of the building. It was not great at all. Their initial response was not brilliant. Long story short, only after months of fighting and kind of escalating my complaint up the chain of the company, I guess, they have compensated me, relatively fairly, I'd say. So I'm happy in that respect. I got some money back on the 5 months of storage rent I paid, and they also showed me 2 other units that had become available elsewhere in the building. One was not necessarily too big. It was a decent size, but relative to the size, the rent was too expensive really for me on my own. The rental prices in this building from this landlord or company, they're not the cheapest. They're not the worst. They're kind of pretty in line with business rental prices in the UK at the moment, or at least in my city. Yeah, they're not the cheapest. The smaller unit was a decent rental price and one that I could afford. But, at the same time, the size was good. The ceilings are fairly low. It's actually in another part of the basement, which has its own access from the front of the building. You go down some stairs and then there's a little kind of corridor. You've got one unit which is owned by a sort of 9 to 5 business that sells like boating equipment and stuff, I think. And then there's the unit that is available that they've showed me. The main issue is it's directly below an MMA fighters classes place. So they teach MMA fighting and other types of martial arts, I think. So it's like mixed martial arts. Yeah, when I went to view the place, I heard quite a few what sounded like people landing on crash mats and that sort of thing. A lot of loud thuds resonating through the floor and then the ceiling of this basement unit, which was not ideal and made me skeptical. Of course, you know, it's the nature. If you can't do soundproofing and that sort of thing and don't have that kind of capital to invest in a business, or it's just not realistic or practical or whatever, you know, you can make compromises and you can work around. I mean, the business adjacent that, you know, is the 9 to 5 selling boating equipment and stuff, I would probably not be able to do certain things in the day, like record drums and so on, because that would probably, you know, they wouldn't be very appreciative of that. But they're 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, so, you know, you can, if the price is right with the kind of time that you can operate within, and you know, you look at your costings and your profit margins and you go, okay, well, with the time that I would still have, I could make that work. During the day, I could say, take care of mixing work, admin, video editing, making YouTube videos, recording vocals, that sort of thing, doing any post-production work, which is something I'm quite keen to explore more and get into more. And then during the evening, I could have bands in rehearsing, I could be recording full band recordings. But this MMA fighters place above, they operate, I think, pretty much 6 days a week. I looked at their timetable online. They operate in the late mornings to sort of mid-afternoons, and then in the evenings from like 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. What I ended up doing was asking if I could set up my my Zoom H1, which is somewhere. I put it somewhere, not that you need to see it. Little handheld recorder. I set that up down there. Actually used it with this. I bought this Belkin power bank. I used to have a really old power bank, but I bought this, and yeah, the power banks have come a long way. This thing powered the Zoom recorder for 14 hours. So 14 hours of recording before the card ran out. And yeah, actually it was still powered up when I came back the next day. Sorry if the camera's shaking right now. My cat is rubbing her face against the tripod, the perils of recording at home. Yeah, this power bank powered it for an entire day and night. And I got 14 hours of recording. Listening to the recording, there was pretty much constant noise disturbances. I also noticed quite a lot of street noise as well. Obviously, the recording was very much out of context. You know, without actually being down there, you can't get that good a sense of where the sounds are coming from, if they're coming from above, what is coming through the walls, and so on. So knowing how you might tackle that, and if there could be things that you could do to mitigate that without, you know, fully like building a room within a room, which even if I have the money, the space is too small, the ceiling is too low to realistically do that. Yeah, it gave me a bit of an indicator, and certainly the indicator that it did give me, I don't know, I don't think it's viable for me, which is frustrating. The only other place I've found in, you know, 6 months or more of searching is a very small unit, which is just under 500 square foot. It's quite quirky. You know, the layout would be, you go in, there's a little entrance, and then there'd be a live room, which is quite small. Like, you couldn't do full live tracking in there, but you could multi-track, set up a drum kit and record your guitars and vocals separately and stuff. And then you've got off to the left what would be the control room, and then another room which is kind of quite small and narrow, but would work maybe quite well as a vocal booth. I'll probably also put my upright piano in there, do guitar reamping in there or whatever. Further down, there's a little area which could be quite a cool kitchenette area, also just general storage, maybe workshop for soldering cables and stuff. And then a little toilet at the back, very small, but it's its own self-contained unit, which is quite nice. Although, having said that, it's self-contained, but it is part of a larger building. So each unit has its own separate entrance, but it's not detached. So it's next to other units with businesses operating in them. Most of them are 9 to 5. Hello. Hey, I'm trying to record a video. Yeah. So there are other businesses operating either side of where I would be and also above. From what the letting agent said, all those businesses are 9 to 5. Some are just more kind of storage, warehouse space. They're not actually there a lot. You know, I could kind of make it work, maybe. And the rental price is low enough that really it's not that much more than what I have been paying for storage, which, although I'd rather not spend money on something that I'm not actually making any profit from, I've been able to afford that storage cost relatively comfortably. You know, it would really only be sort of £50–100 more a month than what I've been paying for storage anyway. So it could work out quite well. The unit to the right of where I'd be was actually available when I first inquired, which I didn't know at the time, but when I went to view the other unit, they told me, oh, actually next door is also available, which was a big open space, same kind of size, around 500 square foot. The landlord offered me a combined rental price on the two, where it knocked about 100 quid off a month. Unfortunately, that unit is now gone because I waited on it too long, which is how it goes, I guess. It's frustrating, but to be honest, I think although long term that could have worked out great, initially the rental cost, it would have then been affordable, but you know, would have given me less of with the savings that I've got, would have given me less of a float in terms of affording rent whilst I'm not bringing any income in, which of course you're going to have to set up your studio first, and I mean it takes time to get clients in and so on. So you really need, you know, kind of a float of maybe 6 months or so where you're not relying on bringing steady income in. But yeah, that adjacent unit has now been taken. They said it's been taken by a t-shirt printing or t-shirt press business. I don't have much knowledge on that stuff, but I think that could be quite a noisy business. Again, if it's 9 to 5, then that could be absolutely fine, although not ideal. If I've got the weekends to work where I've got the whole day, and then, you know, during the day throughout the week I can do the quieter work, I guess, and then in the evenings I've got time to make a bit more noise, that could be fine. There's another spanner in the works in that this place is on a little industrial pocket, but it's a mixed area, so it's mixed industrial and residential properties. I guess probably about 20 meters away from the site of this building, you've got the building, and then you've got sort of a small gated car park area. There are then houses beyond that. I don't think, you know, if someone was bashing away on a drum kit, especially if I put in, you know, if I did a little bit of work, put in a few more partition walls maybe, and, you know, so I doubled up on my doors to my entrance and so on. If somebody was in their house, one of those houses, I can't imagine you would hear it. They might hear it when they venture outside. Somebody really pedantic might complain about that, but unless you're not making loads of noise at 3 in the morning or whatever, if you're done by 10, 11 o'clock at night, it's probably not going to be an issue. But there is that thing of, you know, you just don't know, and that's a worry. I think because there don't really seem to be any other rental options on the market right now that would work for me, and I just can't see there being anywhere else for the foreseeable future. You know, I could be waiting another year, another 2 years, another 5 years if I waited for the right thing to come along. Maybe I just have to take this and take it with the mindset that it's basically glorified storage. So I carry on working in the live events industry to bring some money in. I've got a nice place to store my stuff where it's not piled floor to ceiling high like it has been where my stuff is currently stored, and you know, I can at least do some work in there. And sometimes you just have to try and be smart about these things, and it's about compromise. So instead of, what I'd really love to do is work on more full band recordings. I'd love to do more like live tracking where you can isolate stuff. You have people placed in separate rooms or booths, but everybody can track live together. Filming live sessions as well, where everybody's in the same room and you're videoing it all and whatever. Like, I love the idea of doing stuff like that. But unfortunately, maybe my situation just means that I have to focus more on mixing work and this YouTube channel and whatever I can to make things work until I can find somewhere better. You know, maybe it's better to have something that's not ideal, but at least be doing something. I feel like, just for my own sanity more than anything, if I'm at least, I feel like I'm working towards what I want to achieve with my career, then you know, long term I can find somewhere better, but it gets me started again. I think that's been the hardest part about all of this, just feeling like I'm in this weird limbo and I'm not really doing what I want to be doing. Don't get me wrong, like, it's been fine going back in more into live sound work. I do enjoy that work a lot. Majoritively speaking, I'd say having done it for over a decade now, you do get a little bit jaded. I've worked literal thousands of shows. I've seen just about every kind of band you can imagine. So it takes a lot more to really grab me and not impress me. That sounds a bit arrogant, but just, you know, just excite me and speak to me musically, because I've just seen so many shows, I guess. But I do enjoy it still, and I get to work a lot of cool events, from the small venues to the larger scale of things, and it can be a lot of fun. But I'm also aware, and it's part of one of the reasons why I want to move more into studio work. Not that studio work can be, you know, there's definitely hearing risks and stuff with loud volumes and whatever, but the live events industry, for me personally, I don't see it as a long-term viable career. I think if you're doing it 20 or 30 years, good luck with your hearing remaining intact, even if you do your best to protect your hearing, wearing hearing protection as much as you can, and so on. You know, even after, about 12 years now, maybe, which prior to that, sure, I was playing in bands and playing in rehearsal rooms and not wearing hearing protection, being young and a bit stupid. Yeah, and I wear hearing protection as much as I possibly can now when I'm working. But even having said all that, I do have a bit of tinnitus. It's only when things are really quiet, generally speaking, like when I go to bed at night. But it is there, and so there's always that lingering worry that, okay, you know, is this going to get worse? One of my worst fears is just having constant loud tinnitus. I can't imagine what that must be like to live with. And also just not being able to hear properly anymore. You know, I don't want to go deaf or have crap hearing. Plenty of people live with hearing loss. They still have great lives. But I think particularly for me, just being so invested in music, both personally and for work, it would really affect my life. So I'm being cautious of that and trying to get ahead and take steps to continue doing what I enjoy, but doing that safely and comfortably. And so I think the future for me really relies on me being a bit more studio focused, not stepping away from live sound entirely. Eventually, probably, yeah, but, you know, for the foreseeable future, just not doing it, you know, 5, 6, 7 days a week, which I have been doing. That's a lot to put your hearing through, even wearing hearing protection. Anyway, so that's my current situation. I'm going to wrap this up because I've been waffling for a while now. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I think if anything, I just wanted to make this video just because I haven't made a video in such a long time on this channel, and I wanted to do something. And the easiest thing to do was just to talk about my current life situation and what I've been going through. And it's a little bit of therapy, maybe, in a way, just talking to a camera and venting, getting all this off my chest. It's been a really hard time. There's still a lot of uncertainty, and I'm not sure what to do. I don't know whether to go with this smaller place if I'm looking at. It seems the best out of literally 2 places, 2 options that I have, and it's still not a great option, but it's something. So maybe I just do that. I don't know. If you have any thoughts on it, drop a comment. I'd be interested to hear what you might think, what your advice might be. If any of you have been through something similar, what your studio experiences have been, whether it's renting a commercial space or just dealing with noise in a home studio environment, whatever it is, shout out in the comments. So I'll wrap this up here. Give the video a like if you liked it, subscribe to the channel, all of that stuff. Of course, you know the drill. It helps me out. I'll see you again in the next one, whenever that might be, because, who knows at this point. If I get a new studio space off the ground, I'm going to try and vlog it, whatever, and just show you the whole experience. I think that could be quite interesting, hopefully. Anyway, yeah, take care, and I'll see you next time.